your salty tears and sit right back down. USAID. They're screaming about Elon Musk over there, but hey, George Soros and his boy are okay. They scream that we're all a threat to democracy when they've been systematically dismantling democracy before our eyes. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And there's no going back. So I would tell my colleagues across the other side of the aisle,
with news that a crisis is unfolding in Jamaica and other parts of the world as the United States has paused funding to several government and non-government programs.
Now, some programs are now in limbo as the Donald Trump administration has temporarily closed the United States Agency for International Development, USAID.
Everyone, I hope you're all doing fine. Now, Jamaicans are freaking out. The Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness is breaking out and freaking out because Donald J. Trump, the president of the US, has cut help to Jamaica and the Caribbean countries. Now, what's really not happening? We as black countries are saying we want to be independent, and at the same time, we still depend on these foreign countries to help run our own economy. So let's watch this video, then have a quick discussion at the end of it. Thank you so much.
Andrea Chisholm has details.
Elon Musk, the world's richest man and ardent supporter of US President Donald Trump, is now a special government employee, hell-bent on carrying out his mandate as head of the US Department of Government Efficiency.
What we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a bowl of worms. If you've got an apple and it's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a ball of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a ball of worms. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole thing.
The move to shut down USAID has angered many in Washington.
Elon Musk may get to be dictator of Tesla, but he doesn't, and he may try to play dictator here in Washington, D.C., but he doesn't get to shut down the Agency for International Development.
But for President Trump,
and we're getting them out, USAID, run by radical lunatics, and we're getting them out, and then we'll make a decision.
CNN reports that thousands of contractors and civil servants lost access to email and USAID systems overnight. We were also unable to access USAID's official website. The entity, which administers humanitarian aid programs, has offices in more than 60 countries and employs around 10,000 people. Now, USAID has been working with Jamaica for more than 60 years. In August 2023, Jamaican ambassador to the United States Audrey Marks stated that USAID project support to Jamaica was $123.4 million for the 2013 to 2020 period. It dropped to $60 million for the 2020 to 2025 period. In September 2024, the 5-year USAID Youth Empower program was launched. USAID pledged to provide $3 million in initial funding to assist about 5,000 young people. $9.9 million was also allocated in April 2024 for USAID to help support victims of interpersonal and collective violence. TVJ News understands that some civil society groups are also in limbo. Among them, Eva for Life, Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, Rise Life Management, and Jamaica Network of Seropositives. When our newsroom made contact, the groups indicated that they have been placed under gag orders since the Trump administration's announcement of the foreign aid pause. Persons were also unable to book appointments for health services as Health Connect Jamaica's website was offline due to a suspension of funds from U.S.
Remittances serve two purposes. They serve as, let's say, an income source for many Jamaican households. It's what put food on the table for many Jamaicans. So that's quite significant. And then at a macro level, it's also very important in terms of it helps the economy to pay for critical goods and services that are imported into the country. So any material fallout in remittances will have a sizable impact. But we should point out nonetheless that it's still very early days. We still do not know how this thing will play out. There are many things that we need to find out to to really get a sense of what the impact will be. For example, we are not certain the amount of remittances that are sent by illegal immigrants. We need to ensure, we will need to see how other states, for example, adopt any kind of proposals or law to limit illegal migrants from sending remittances. Also, something that you have to consider as well is whether or not a black market will develop for sending remittances. For example, you can have legal citizens who will serve as somewhat, let's call them a broker, and they will send the remittances and charge a fee from those persons who are not signed off to send remittances. Also, keep in mind that people could go to other states as well to send remittances. So way too early, and I think we need to point that out to the listeners that while your viewers, while remittances are fairly significant in terms of the overall impact on Jamaica at this time, it's still too early to say.
What I find interesting, Dr. Stokes, is that data up to October 24 from the BOJ shows remittances, shows inflows falling. I was surprised when I read this just now because we said $3 billion in, 2021, but there's been fall off since that time. What do you attribute that to, and how would that affect us? And now, within the context of that, these additional layers that may be added, what are the implications?
Right. So remittances ebb and flow. You would expect employment situation in the U.S. to play a role to the extent that the labor market in the U.S. is cooling quite significantly for over a year. So you would expect that to show or to reflect in remittances. The good thing that we need to outline for Jamaica is that we have the net international reserves, and that stood at $5.6 billion at the end of December. This is somewhat of, let's call it a piggy bank for Jamaica. FX, right? Which in the short term, if there were to be any adverse impact coming from laws passed in the US, then that the NIR could serve as a very useful buffer. So again, in the medium near term, there aren't significant risk at a macro level. Not to say that there won't be at the micro level in terms of individual households. Persons, will have to amend their circumstances. But again, way too early to say what the impact will be.
How long can that NIR last us, Dr. Stokes? I mean,
Well,
we don't want to find out, but...
Right. Let's just say that at $5.6 billion, it is quite significant. It's quite robust and could well last us for cover close to a full year of imports into the country. So very, very significant. Notwithstanding, if there were to be any kind of prolonged fallout in remittances, then NIR clearly will come under stress, and the government would have to have a significant policy response.
You've covered almost everything and what might happen, what might not happen. But what do you think? Because there's been a lot of pushback against the president's movements for some certain things in certain states. What do you think? You think it really going to reach the stage that money going to stop? Well, we not everyone in the United States is illegal, obviously. But what do you think might happen?
The issue of immigration is quite significant in the U.S. A lot of robust measures are being put in place to curb illegal immigration. And therefore, in some states, you could see some movement towards curtailing remittances because that's a significant outcome from immigration or persons going to the U.S. So, as I indicated before, in terms of the overall impact on Jamaica, it's a bit complicated because I do not believe all states will respond in the same way. You have states that are more, let's say, immigrant friendly, and I doubt will adopt the kind of robust measures that are being debated in Florida. So that could
Florida
serve
is a
as
different kettle of fish for sure. What about implications on the remittance companies themselves, Dr. Stokes?
Well, again, they will see to the extent that, and again, we have to remind viewers, to the extent that this thing is put into law and it happens, then they will see a reduction in the flows coming through their entities. Again, in terms of the impact, too early to say, because at this point, we still don't know what proportion of remittances illegal immigrants send globally and specifically to Jamaica.
So to the 28% of Jamaican households who receive remittances regularly, you would say, don't worry, yet?
Well, not yet, but obviously you can turn on your TV and you will see that the issue is real. A lot of effort to curb illegal immigration. And this is one of the areas that is certainly at risk. As I indicated before, I would doubt that you would see it become a somewhat, let's say, a national policy in the US. I think it will be state-driven. And to the extent that you have red states and blue states, and therefore some states that perhaps might be more accommodating to remittances and not as robust at migration, then that could serve as some kind of ease. Notwithstanding, as a country and in terms of our individual circumstances, it's good to look at what we're doing and to enact buffers, if not policies, to minimize any kind of material fallout that could or may come from this issue.
And there's been a lot of pearl clutching over the last several days from my colleagues across the aisle on Donald Trump, Secretary Rubio, the Department of Government Efficiency's plan to reorganize the U.S. Agency for International Development, or as we all now know, USAID. They're screaming about Elon Musk over there, but hey, George Soros and his boy are okay. They scream that we're all a threat to democracy when they've been systematically dismantling democracy before our eyes. They've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar. And there's no going back. So I would tell my colleagues across the other side of the aisle, take your salty tears and sit right back down. USAID has long strayed from its mission to effectively and efficiently administer aid to advance American interests. USAID has become rotten to its core, sacrificing the prudent use of taxpayer dollars at the altar of advancing radical, sinister social and political agendas abroad. From discriminatory DEI initiatives to extreme gender ideology to marginalize real bona fide biological women. For decades, while homeless veterans sleep on our streets, our communities rebuild from natural disasters, and American families struggle to get by, USAID has pillaged and plundered the American treasury, essentially lighting American taxpayer dollars on fire, funding some of the stupidest, just dumbest initiatives imaginable, all supported by the left, and that's why their party is crumbling. Today, I'm going to expose some of the initiatives USAID has funded over the years and ask each of you a yes or no question. If you believe these expenditures of American taxpayer dollars put America first, so it'll be yes or no. USAID awarded $2 million to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming health care in Guatemala. So to each of you this morning, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for trannies in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million? Yes or no? Governor?
No. I have no position.
Of course you don't. Okay, USAID awarded over $750,000 to fund alleviating loneliness among migrant garment workers in India. Does this advance America's interests, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
USAID awarded $1.5 million for providing a gender-sensitive response to migration at the Venezuelan border. Does this advance America's interests, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
Does this advance the interest? Okay, so USAID awarded $4.3 million on October 1st, 2023 to a group to fund comprehensive health services for men having sex with other men in South Africa. Does this advance the interests of American citizens, Governor?
No.
No. I have no position.
I bet you don't. Okay. USAID awarded $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities by promoting economic empowerment and opportunity for LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. Nope.
You have no idea, right? Okay. USAID awarded over $70,000 to a group to deliver a live musical event to promote the U.S. and Irish shared values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Does this advance the interests of America?
No.
No. No position.
No position or no clue. Okay, USAID awarded $1.5 million to fund strengthening community support structures to upscale LGBT rights advocacy in Jamaica. Does this advance our interests?
No.
No. No position.
USAID awarded $28 million to a group to facilitate the economic insertion of Venezuelan migrants and refugees in Peru and Ecuador. Does this advance our interests?
No.
No. No position.
Okay, USAID awarded $17.5 million to fund voluntary medical male circumcision overseas. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. No position.
I don't know what circumcision overseas has to do with America First either. USAID awarded nearly $150,000 to fund HIV prevention services targeting men who have sex with men and transgender. Does this advance America's interests?
No.
No. No position.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm limited to 5 minutes, but these are the programs Democrats are so desperate to save. Our foreign assistance system is badly broken, and this ends now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Relationship between the U.S. and Jamaica. I know it's broad-based, but just to give our viewers a capsule of that.
Well, Cheryl, the relationship between the United States and Jamaica is a sound and a very positive one. We value very much the relationship with Jamaica. President Obama phoned Prime Minister Simpson Miller early to congratulate her. Secretary Clinton has phoned the Prime Minister, as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to talk about areas of priority that we could assist even further the government and the people of Jamaica. So in a word, we have excellent relations.
Very good. In what ways are the governments of the U.S. and Jamaica working together? I would ask, I'm going to go back to you, Ambassador, and then if you would just chime in.
Sure.
Well, we cooperate on a plethora of activities. And of course, the linchpin activities are through our Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, which is President Obama's plan for engaging in a regional way in the Caribbean. We cooperate with the Jamaica Constabulary. We cooperate with the Jamaica Defense Force. And we work really to support the courts, the magistrates. We engage in cultural activities. So it's broad-based, it's robust, and it's very positive.
Ambassador, from your perch, how do you see that relationship?
Well, I'm glad that, you mentioned the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, because this is a very broad-based initiative which we believe can be of great benefit, not just to Jamaica, but the entire Caribbean region. One of the concerns we've had with this is whether it is fully resourced, and we know the constraints that exist and so on. But I would like to dovetail a little bit into the delegation which recently was led by Deputy Assistant Secretary Julissa Reynosa to Jamaica. And as you are very much aware, Ambassador, the crime situation has been quite a difficult problem to resolve in Jamaica and elsewhere. And we were very pleased in the diaspora to see that this kind of engagement was taking place. And perhaps maybe you could give me some indications, and our audience, I'm sure there are many members of the diaspora who will be watching this program and who have a strong interest in seeing exactly how US-Jamaica relations work in terms of saying that delegation and what can be expected.
Well, I'm happy that you raised that because we were very pleased that Secretary Clinton wanted very early on in the administration of Prime Minister to find ways that we could further enhance in terms of technical assistance in areas of priority. And certainly citizen security and safety are high. They are also very high, as you know, the CBSI. So one of the things we engaged in were discussions with the Minister of National Security. We looked at areas that we could assist the courts in terms of bringing criminal elements to justice. We found that that was one area of logjam. So we think that we'll be able to assist with additional personnel that will work in tandem in Jamaica and working with the areas that Jamaica has helped to identify as important. We are very pleased about that, and we will be working vigorously to put these things into fruition.
Can I follow up a little bit on that?
Absolutely.
I noticed the delegation had within it representatives from State, Justice Department, Treasury, and USAID. I assume the USAID was more with the judiciary and building the rule of law section. I noticed absent from that delegation, however, was a representative of the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearm. I don't know if this was left out by the press or this was in fact so. My reason for raising that is, as you know, Ambassador, one of the major concerns that we have back in Jamaica and in the Caribbean is the illicit trafficking of arms to the Caribbean, many of which are coming from the United States. And considering that President Obama had promised that there would be equal emphasis on the illicit arms trafficking as there is on the drug interdiction, so I was just wondering if this is a gap or is it something that is going on?
No, it was not a gap. In fact, we had the regional representative from ATF in Jamaica prior to that visit, so we did not need to include that individual on this visit. But I'm happy you raised it because we know that it is a priority, and as such, we have been engaged with a program called E-Trace for tracing the source of firearms. And we do understand that many are traced from the United States. So we've gotten the commitment from the constabulary. In fact, I personally met with the head of the constabulary, Commissioner Ellington, to get his assurance that following the training that we're providing on the E-Trace, that we'll be able to use those individuals that have been trained specifically to keep them in the loop and not to have them back into the regular force, because we need to have a concentrated effort that is sustained, because we need to work both ways on that. So we are very actively engaged. So thank you for asking that.
Very pleased to hear that. And the other thing that figures in that whole scenario is the training is, of course, a necessity. But as was Ms. Reynoso mentioned also, that you're talking about complex crimes.
Yes.
You're talking about illicit trafficking in arms, drug trafficking, human trafficking, money laundering, all linked together. And it takes a lot more than just training. It also takes sophisticated equipment, and I'm glad you mentioned the conversation you had with Commissioner Ellington, because it is important that the cadre of trained people be established as a unit to continue this work, but they also will need more sophisticated equipment. And does the United States have any plan to help in that regard?
Well, I'm again very happy that you mentioned that, because several weeks ago, I was very pleased through our Narcotics Affairs section to present to the Police Forensic Department 2 very sophisticated macroscopes, which are quite expensive, but we not only provided.
Now, we've seen Donald Trump, the president of the US now, is trying to cut down some help or aid that was being given to Caribbean countries, that includes Jamaica and African continent. I stand with him. I support him because we actually say a lot that we need to be independent, that our countries need to depend on themselves so that we fully gain the independence that we perpetuate that we have. Now, if we really want to be independent and if we really want to have development and stop the exploitation of the white people in our own black countries in Africa and the Caribbean, we should first say no to their help. We should first actually get away from the aid that we've been getting from them, from the grants that we've been getting from them, from the stipulates that we've been getting from them. So this is the time we should accept our fate as black people. I see so many people talking on the internet that Donald J. Trump is evil. He has cut aid, he has cut RVS, he has cut so many other things. But we are the same people who cheer up when we say that we need to be independent, when we say that our own black countries should stand on their own, use the taxes the people pay in a prudent way, use the taxes with a lot of transparency, stop the wastages, stop the corruption in these black countries, because we black people pay taxes that can run our government. What do the people we elected do with that money? They simply go pocket that money and go back, travel to the US, travel to France to ask for some help. That we as a black continent, we as people of black descent in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, in Africa, that we raise enough taxes that can run our governments, that can develop our own countries. But what happens? We elect poor people who come out of power, billionaires, and we actually worship the billionaires because we actually see them as the lords of success after they have looted everything. Now, we've seen presidents in Africa freaking out. We've seen presidents, prime ministers in the Caribbean freaking out just because Donald Trump is cutting the help he was giving to these countries. And my question is, if we raise taxes that can run our own countries, later on to lose them on corruption, why can't we manage the corruption that we have so that the help that has been cut by Donald Trump be replaced by the money that is being lost through corruption? So there is so much to be said. When we talk of Pan-Africanism, when we talk of black people coming together, the black unity, when we talk of us getting independence, leave alone the independence that we were given by the colonial masters who never left our land till today, they still exploit our mineral resources, they still run our economies, they still have puppet leaders. They have installed puppet leaders all over Africa, all over the Caribbean. So this is not the independence. This is not the sovereignty we're talking about. We, as black people, are talking about total sovereignty. We are talking about total independence, in that zero interference from the West, that every decision that is being made in our country is being made in our country as a census of the people in that country, that the people in that country have come to a conclusion. The consensus being made in that country is as a result of good policies that are being developed and being implemented by the people themselves, not someone going to the US, getting some policies from Bill Gates to come and try to adapt GMO foods in Africa. Not someone getting orders from Bill Gates to come and vaccinate animals so that they should stop fatting in Africa. Then, in the next 10 years, 20 years, we don't have livestock. We start buying meat that has been made from the lab. Then the whole of African continent will be having cancer, chronic diseases everywhere. Then they'll have their hospitals here, they'll have their doctors in Africa. That's how they want to run this business. And when we say we don't want total independence, I thank Donald J. Trump for doing this. Cut everything, cut every help. If it was possible, any African continent, any black country should not be given loans. If it were, as by my thinking, that every black country has the capacity to build itself, why don't you go to China? Have contracts. The Chinese to do business in Africa. Then, in return, you get development. They build their roads in Africa. You let them run the roads for 5 years, then they'll go leave the roads with you. This is whatever we are talking about. If we are really want to be independent, we should not sign some crazy things that I'm seeing on the other side, that we, the people of Africa, we, the people of black descent, should actually run away from this puppet behavior. That when Donald Trump speaks, it's like a lord, it's like a king to us when we didn't elect him. I know the US might be a superpower, but not our superpower, because we have the African continent and we have the black business to run in Africa. We are African, we are black, and it is only black business that matters to us. Whatever happens in the US is up to them. We are only concerned about the US because we have our brothers and sisters on the other side of the continent. That's why we follow things that are happening in the US. And if it were not for that, why don't we follow things that are happening in countries like Philippines or others? It's because we don't have as much big population of black people there. So we are much eager to know whatever is happening with the US because of our brothers and sisters. So let no one mistake us for having Stockholm syndrome, or for liking our oppressors. We don't like the oppressors. In fact, we want them to cut everything they're giving to Africa. If it were possible, let them cut everything and let Africa be independent. Let the Caribbean be independent. Let Jamaica be independent. I'm very sorry for talking. I've heard the Jamaican PM Andrew Holness is like he wants to join Russia to get help from Russia. And what happens to the taxes Jamaicans are paying? It's simply because he doesn't manage the taxes well. If he was actually managing the taxes well, we could have seen so much development without laws. Look at whatever Ibrahim Traore is doing in Burkina Faso. He has just managed the whole system, and he has absorbed young leaders who are not corrupt, and he has given them ultimatums. If you're corrupt, this will happen. If you're corrupt, this will happen. How many developments are we seeing from the other side? They have paid their loans. He has cleared the loans that Burkina Faso had. Then he got away from the World Bank and IMF, and Burkina Faso is doing well. The same thing happened to the guy they eliminated in Tanzania in Africa. He paid the loans, then he got himself away from the World Bank and IMF. He was building schools, he was building hospitals, he was building highways, he was building good roads, he was doing so much development, but not by the help of the West, and that's why they eliminated him. This is why we are saying, we as black people, we are getting away from the puppet behavior of worshiping the white oppressors, those people who have looted everything, those people who brought disaster to our continent. We are getting away from them. Let them cut everything if they want. Let the black countries remain independent without the interference of the West and the US. Thank you so much for having taken the time to watch this video. I appreciate it so much. If it's your first time on this channel, please consider subscribing, sharing, like, and comment on the video. Thank you so much.